Hi everyone, my name is Renee Huang. I'm your host of the Ignite podcast and founder of Wild Women Tribe, a group that brings transformational experiences to women outdoors. The Ignite podcast is brought to you in partnership with Park City TV, who's our amazing media sponsor. And today we're going to sit down and talk to some wonderful women about the concept of choosing your story. The Ignite podcast is actually born of the idea that two women from different backgrounds can sit down and talk about things that matter without really much of a preamble. So I hope that you enjoy the diving in and also bring that to your own lives as you move forward. So I wanted to introduce Megan Helgeson, yoga instructor, blogger, writer, mom extraordinaire.
Thank you.
And also Karla Olson, who is a Park City TV hostess herself and also is involved in the singer-songwriter team that just happened here a couple weeks ago. So welcome, ladies.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I love the idea of diving into, we were talking a little bit before about the thoughts that we have and how they can really impact where we are, our reality, the relationships that we have. So I wanted to actually just start right there and see what is your experience with that whole concept of your story and like your voice.
Yeah, go ahead. Do you want to?
Sure, I'll take that. Well, I think, over the years, you kind of, as you mature, you realize like maybe your story that you think has been happening isn't the case. As we gain maturity and more perspective, especially I have 3 daughters, right? So I was really aware of it when my youngest daughter turned about 5. And she was just like, well, Mom, you say that I shouldn't be scared, but you're scared. Yeah. And it was just,
wow.
I went through breast cancer. And so watching that from their perspective, I really had to challenge myself of what is my story? What do I really believe? Where do those beliefs come from? And then do I want that as part of my story? I think the older we get, right, as mature women,
Choosing your story.
We can choose what we want for our story and not maybe take in someone else's story. So I really protect my story. I love my story now. I'm very honest about what I've been through, but it's just been a great thing. I think being in my 40s, I have a lot of time I've spent thinking about my story.
And whether or not you want it to define
exactly
who you are or get too wrapped into
right.
it. Or
like I think when I was younger as a teenager, you're so affected by everyone that it affects your story about yourself, right? We still see that today with girls, and that's just one cycle I want to break. Is just there's beauty in everyone, talk to yourself well. I would never talk to my children the way I talk to myself in my head.
No.
Ever. And so my trick I use is if I'm having a day where I'm like, oh, I'm not good enough or I can't do that, I honestly say, okay, what would you say to Mackenzie?
Yeah.
What would you say to Riley? So when I get that third person perspective,
that's great.
all of a sudden I'm like, I would never talk to them that way. So I think stories are so important.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, what about you, Megan?
I think back when I was thinking of this question, I was like, oh my gosh, all the time that I spent on the story of my looks and my physical appearance defining who I was or stalling me out from being happy. When you mention teenagers, I mean, I distinctly remember, just that I'll get that cute outfit when I lose weight, or no, I'm not going to go to that party because I don't look good, or I don't, and how emotional that was, and the wasted time. And again, I guess even to think about it now, I don't want to beat myself up about it. I look back on it as a learning experience. To that was a time in my life, that was a story that I was so wrapped up in that it kept me from experiencing and really being who I was meant to be and coming into my own. And I found, honestly, it wasn't until my 30s that I really started, kind of, I don't care. I mean, we all care what other people think. Let's not be crazy, but I really don't care the way that I used to. I look back at this poor girl who, was bulimic and so, wrapped up again in just this narrative of her own physical body, and that now today, 39, and I am more self-confident and more knowing, and what would I say to that
Yeah.
young girl? I've thought about that, so many times, and the things that I would say to her, and what we want to say to our children, so that they don't lose that time. They don't. You don't want to keep them from feeling things, but that they own a different kind of story. Right? Like a more positive story. What you were talking about, just those positive thoughts and reiterating positive thoughts.
Well, and I think, especially young girls as they're growing up into their own identity, like identity and story are two ideas that I think are so closely linked. And so to not have a strong sense of identity means that you're, I think, looking for outward approval, and you're trying on different personas, and that's part of what it takes to kind of separate from your parents and come into your own. But it's interesting, like we're all moms, and having daughters is so enlightening and kind of brings to the forefront that whole idea of finding yourself and really taking the time to love yourself and not really care so much. And it's not as easy as it sounds, is it?
No.
I mean, we all go through it, and I think when we were younger, it was before social media too. So I just think
I can't. I just can't. I don't even know. I'd be in a black hole.
I would be in the corner
under the covers with my thumb in my mouth. I'm uncertain how kids do it.
But that's
I just
their
don't know.
reality.
That is their reality.
Like the people that post and then they fix the pictures.
Oh my God.
They're just not. That's not even real.
No.
So I mean, it was bad enough. Like the magazines. When
Our
we were
age
growing
does
up.
that too, by the way.
I'm
100%.
49.
Somebody, regardless, we have I guaranteed.
Okay, wait. This is my good side.
Guaranteed, people are doing that at our age. I'm
no,
certain.
exactly.
Yeah. And it's just a lot of. And then if there's something bad that happens and someone posts it and you're embarrassed, I mean, you can never recover from that.
Yeah.
It's just there's a lot of pressure nowadays.
Yeah, and which I think is harder for kids now, even for us. I'll admit, I think that's it. I have to consistently remind myself, with not positive affirmations necessarily, but honestly, I mean, kind of, okay, at the end of the day, this is what matters, whatever, because we might not be teenagers, but we're living in the height of social media or whatever, and to not get wrapped up into it, and 30 minutes in of scrolling on my Instagram and everything, and I'm going, oh my God, why am I looking at this, or why am I comparing myself to this person that's going on vacation? I want to go on vacation, and but it just is crazy, the rabbit hole that it starts taking you down, and to kind of be able to pull yourself back and remember what you're doing and what your story is, and not get so overwhelmed by everyone else and what are people going to think about what I put out.
Well, it's because it's created to do that to us, right? I mean, it literally is a dopamine hit that you get when you get the likes or get the follows or get whatever. I mean, they create it so that we get addicted. And so to have that conscious thought like, oh, wait a minute, I have to put this down. I have some people who are actually shutting down Facebook pages, they're not going on, they're taking it off their phones. And so I think we are kind of in an age of more awareness where I do know people who are more and more just saying no to that because they realize that it's like too overwhelming and too much of a negative story and feeding into that dialogue that we don't want to have.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I wanted to go back a little bit though to where when you guys both kind of discovered that whole idea that, wait a minute, this is a story. Do you remember when that kind of clicked with you? Because for me, like I don't think I really realized that like thoughts are things that you just continue to believe until quite recently, Like I think as we sit and want to make friends with people and find commonality, it's really natural to tell our story, right? And to go backwards and to say, well, this is my upbringing and this is how I was wounded and these are all the things that, and those don't necessarily serve us in the present or in the future, right? So I'm just kind of discovering like, oh, I have the power to change what I think about. But what about you guys? Was it something that was in your early 20s, or you said more recently, like in your 30s?
Yeah, in my 30s. I feel like it was an evolution. I feel like when I met my husband, when we met, it was our last semester in college, and that was one thing that started switching things because it was somebody that was different from anybody that I had ever dated, and his, the way that he loved me and the way that he loves me and the way that he talks to me was new to me, and was, he was so surprised by the way that I, acted or thought of myself rather, or the words that I used, and would call me out on it every time. And I was like, oh, I guess that is really not very healthy for me to be thinking this way. And then, little things, but yoga was a huge piece for me. I feel like that was me coming into my own and bringing more of the mental, emotional, spiritual part of myself and connecting that to my body, and those things working together helped to really again bring me into my own. And you made a great point, just maturity. I mean, I'd love to say that I was super mature. I look back and I'm like, oh my God, I don't understand where's
the eraser?
Where's the eraser? Oh Lord. And I think it was maturity. So it was all time. You can't force that. I think I also grew up in a household that there wasn't a lot of talk like this. I had a great relationship with my mom and my dad and everybody, and a very supportive household. But the conversations weren't a lot like this. Like that people I think are able to have more now. And so that's something that I want to start doing with my kids, like you said, with having those conversations with your daughter is massive.
Right.
Massive. My mom was very supportive and very loving, and it was a really difficult time for her when I was going through a lot of things when I was younger. But I think the positive affirmation and the feeling that was, that was something I don't know that she even knew how to do.
Yeah, I agree. We just met, and our backgrounds are so similar. So same thing with me, my husband.
Yeah.
So my husband shows up, loves me, takes care of me in different ways than any other man, had. And it took me years, even after we were married, to be like, I'm not worth having him.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't let him love me because I have that story.
Yeah.
It was just a story of he's gonna leave, or I'm not gonna do something right, and I look back going, God, what was I thinking? And anyway, he's just a wonderful man. And then also for you it was yoga, but for me it was running.
Yeah.
I'd have to say running really
an outlet.
It's an outlet. And then also meditation. So really making that mind-body connection for me was so important. I do a lot of work with Dr. Joe Dispenza, and it's like your thoughts create your reality. They really do. How are you going to, like, one of my daughters sees the world a certain way every day, and I was like, okay, let's take off those glasses, and what are some other things that you see around? So I try to change the lens that she's seeing it without her knowing it, because that'll help her have a more authentic story instead of being stuck like, oh, everyone's mean at school, or I'm like, well, point out the person that was nice today.
Yeah.
So I have her searching for that instead of searching for the negative part of her story.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you have super grounded people in your lives that have maybe just always known how to be that way, and that you've been drawn to them, and they've been able to bring that out in you. I think that's part of the amazing journey, that you meet these people who are kind of like game changers, and they really can just like flip the switch and show you through just like consistency and love and owning their own story, right?
And for me too, it was in my house we didn't have a lot of this kind of talk either. And my parents didn't have a great marriage. I went through some rough stuff in that house, but anyway. But when I got a hold of Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, I was like, what is this? Like, I didn't know you could think this way, and I've just been on that path. That one book took me on this journey. Brought me to where I am.
When something clicks.
Yeah, and that's the kind of things that I'm trying to introduce, like in my home, like you guys are, is just getting your kids to think that way. Just little things. It's going to get their trajectory going in the right direction early. So,
And wasn't it having kids too, even?
Yes.
I mean, what a huge part. So, after getting married and after maturing, whatever, all of a sudden, regardless of what your story was, you have this whole other entity that you are fully responsible for without a manual, and you kind of have to let go and of a lot of those things in order to be there for, and take care of this little person that you need to, that needs to grow and is all dependent on you and everything.
It kind of forces the issue.
It forces it.
For you're like, is this really how I feel? Is this how I'm going to act? Why do I do this? Or what,
do I want to keep this going?
Yeah.
Do I want to carry this on?
Right.
And even today, not to get off track of that, but I almost kind of take it even one step further and think, when things happen sometimes, is that the story I even want to tell? Like, life is so much bigger, and there are so many other things going on. Is this really what I want to get wrapped into? And I think, especially as women, we have this tendency to beat this horse into submission, or you have this thing that we just keep reiterating, and this story that we keep telling because, for whatever reason, not to be stereotypical, we do thrive on some of that drama, and that story can sometimes be that drama. And so before that, we were talking about some of the negative aspects. That's one of those things as an adult that we're still dealing with. That to not continually perpetuate that story.
But it's interesting, you both brought up, not having these conversations around the dinner table growing up. And I certainly didn't as well. Like, I had, parents who were immigrants, and so they were just totally, just like wanting to survive and kind of keep our family in, the North American dream or whatever. But it's so interesting how we're kind of up-leveling, like, as a society, and everyone's kind of like going there, like, oh yeah, I've been thinking about that too. I'll hear that more and more with girlfriends. And so that's why I love conversations like this, because it's like everyone's kind of mulling it over, and the more we talk about it and the more we kind of bring ourselves there and bring each other there, I think the higher consciousness we get, and then the more impact we're able to have. I mean, you were mentioning Stephen Covey. There's a woman named Byron Katie who talks about the work, and she's constantly talking about, like, challenge your thoughts. Your thoughts are just things that kind of are treadmilling like a hamster through your brain, right? And I don't remember what the number is.
No,
you are not your thoughts.
You are not your thoughts.
I remember reading something about, like, we have infinite number of thoughts a day, and there's probably like only a handful of them that are different. We just cycle.
I think it's like 80%. It's something like we have 80% of the same thoughts.
Something
over
crazy.
That.
Have you ever thought of something, and because to that point we are not our thoughts, because good Lord, if I was some of the things that I thought about, it's scary.
It's scary in there.
The things that go through. Yeah, totally. The things that go through your head.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
But it's good to stop yourself and say, wait a minute, what is the thought that I'm having?
Yeah.
What am I thinking about? Do I like it?
Yes.
Does it feel good? And if it doesn't feel good, I talk to my kids about, well, then just choose a different thought.
Absolutely.
Or go do something until you're distracted and you're not thinking about it anymore. And then when you circle back to something that feels good, then just do more of that.
Absolutely.
Right? And it's just like learning myself and then teaching that empowerment of, your thoughts don't have you. They're just things that are in your head, and you don't have to pay attention to them.
No.
It's just things that are floating through. Right?
Because when you do, have you ever had those, because this is a Joe Dispenza thing, have you ever had those thoughts that, like, physically get you emotional?
Yeah.
I mean, I've been driving in the car and I don't even know how it's even happening. And then my children are dead, and and I'm crying, and I'm like, oh my God,
I know.
Where did this even come from? And how did I even allow myself to get this upset about it? It's a matter of being able to stop yourself soon enough, before all of that happens, before you start becoming, those thoughts. Because that's difficult to do.
And that's a skill too that I'm trying to teach my kids is, if they're having feelings or thoughts that they're not with, just that recovery period, that retractory period, reducing that. So being like, the sooner you can catch those thoughts and switch your perspective, the better. So I'm trying to teach them that skill. So
let's talk about that maybe. Like, what do you guys have, like a toolkit that you revert to, or kind of practices where you pay attention to your thoughts? And
for me, I'll snap all of a sudden. If I just notice I'm doing a negative thing, I just do a snap. So we were at a Joe Dispenza week-long workshop, and he said, pick something that you can just be like, oh, or I'll just tap, or I'll just interrupt it
To
with
break
something,
it.
just a little physical kind of thing, because it disrupts your thoughts, and it also neurologically reconnects you back into your body. And so it can, the thoughts create emotions, and feelings are the language of the body, right? And so if you change your thoughts, then you're actually going to change the chemicals that are going through your body, right? So I try to just sort of snap out of it, not to have a pun, but
No, yeah, definitely.
yeah, so
Definitely.
I snap or tap, and then I just replace it with 3 other thoughts. So I just try to, replace it with more. If I had a bad thought, then I want to have at least 3 good ones after that. So, yeah.
Nice,
I'll
I like
literally
that.
say it out loud to myself.
Oh, really?
Oh, I'll literally, I mean, I could be, I'm that really scary person in the grocery store that if she's not screaming at her children that are 3 aisles over, she's going, why are you even thinking about this? Let's think of something else. Like right in the middle of the bread aisle or something.
So if we see a store,
yes,
you're good.
I'm
You're good.
I'm
You're just
totally
shopping.
Fine. I'm totally fine.
Normal day.
If I'm not going, shoot, and then what else? What was the other ingredient? Because God, I forgot my list again. And no, if I'm not saying that out loud, I'm definitely like I have to. It's like that snap. It's like I have to physically. I have to hear myself say, stop thinking about that. Think of something else, switch your mind, like this is a waste of your time and it's okay, like just move on.
My sister-in-law, who's a coach with Joe Dispenza, she's been working with him for 10 years. She also said to do this. So for some reason, when you do this and you put your hand up and your eyes see that, some kind of the connection, that can stop it too.
Yeah.
So if you're in a place where you can't
Yeah,
be talking to
yeah,
yourself. Anyway.
I'm like at the OBGYN, she's like, what is happening up there?
What are you thinking?
What is going on up there? Nothing, it's okay.
Do your
It's just
thing.
me, do your thing. I'm fine.
I love that though. Those are like very simple, concrete tools that everyone can use and kind of play with. And it just gives you that idea that, we're not a slave to our thoughts.
Yes.
Right? And I think a lot of times growing up or just, moving through life, you think, well, I guess this is it,
Yeah.
I am in the place that I'm at because of whatever led me here, but I like knowing, no, you can take control of your thoughts and you can have different feelings if you want to, and I think that's really empowering, and it's a really amazing tool to teach to people as well.
Definitely.
What about like your family and social networks? Do you find like people are also in that same mindset, or do you find yourself sharing those tools with your loved ones?
I try and share them with my kids and my husband. When things are going on, we try and bounce back and forth. Our kids, we started playing "Don't Worry, Be Happy" because that morning routine when they're, and it's like, this doesn't have to ruin our day, Or I don't know if your kids ever get, they start getting upset when you have. Yelled at them or something, or they did, but it was warranted. And, now they're all in a pouty mood. And it's like, hey, listen, that was a consequence. Moving on. Like, let's, it's kind of like let's just press the reset button. It's right here. And we'll like make an imaginary reset button. Be like, press that button right there.
That's cute.
And like,
That's
let's just start it. Let's close our eyes. Let's take a deep breath. Because just get in a different frame of mind.
And don't carry it with you.
And don't carry it with
Yeah.
you. And don't carry it with you. It's so much easier said than done. I think we all sometimes can get in the habit of thriving on the negative. Again, that's that story, but you're in a bad mood. You kind of don't want to not be in a bad mood.
It's a choice
It's
to get
a
out of it.
choice to get out of that bad mood, and you
Yep.
know it's a choice, but
And
you're
it's
like,
working for you. It's
yeah,
a payoff.
it's a payoff. I'm going to be grumpy, or and there's something just oddly negatively satisfying about it. But when there is a part in "Don't Worry, Be Happy" about a part in the song just that's like, when you're frowning, you're bringing everyone else down with your frown. And I have to think of that. Like when I have the resting face, I'm like, well, that's everyone.
That's what I'm gonna
that's
get.
What apparently I'm giving off to everyone now. Like, that's nice.
Yeah.
Like, great, Megan. So remembering that too. I'm projecting that energy, and I don't want to do that. So when you talk about actually having this conversation with other women or other people, that's one of the things that we've talked about before, is just kind of like, God, when I'm in a bad mood, what that makes other people feel like. I should just stay in my closet in my house when I'm feeling that way, because I don't want to give it out to other people, you know?
Yeah.
So.
Well, I find that in my relationships too, like I can choose the quality of the relationships that I have, right?
Yes.
So if the drama is not where I want to go, or if the negative feedback loop is not where I want to go, I'll literally like not engage in a group text or a social situation or, you know, a one-on-one with a friend who I don't want to reinforce that and validate it, right? So I find myself like being a little more selective.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
it feels good
I'm
to
gonna
do
start
that,
doing
you
that.
know?
I'm
You'll
gonna
be driving
start
by, we'll
doing
just be like,
that.
hey.
Somebody's gonna start a conversation. We'd be like,
But you know, we were talking before about how you can lead by example, right? And by not buying into it,
Right.
I think is the first step.
I think that comes back to, we were talking about how as women in this mindset, the work that we're all doing, we're really leveling up, right? And so we're going to bring that to our kids. But for me, I found as I started leveling up and really working on myself, and I started, you know, getting a TV show and some other wonderful things that have happened, and I just, some friends are going to fall away, right? Because you used to spend so much time with them, and it just, I never was comfortable with that. I always wanted to save everything, and I was like, okay, so I just have to remember, I would always like match the vibration of my friends. So if my friend was in, not that if they were sad, if I needed them, but the drama, right?
Yeah.
So I'd quiet down. I wouldn't go out and do the things in the world that I wanted to do. I kind of gave away all my time. And I've noticed now that when I've decided to, I have this thing on my phone every morning, and it says, be the vibration, don't look for the match. And
That's
so for
awesome.
me, I feel like I'm operating at this level, connecting great people in our community through our show, right, this station, but I just have to remember to be the vibration, and I can control what I put out there, but I don't have to.
that's good.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was
You need
really
to
hard
text
for
that
me. I mourned one of my friendships I was really close with just sort of fell away. Nothing negative, you know, still friends, but it freed up my whole life, you know. So that was really hard to do, you know, even though I'm in my 40s, but it was very necessary, and it was great because all these wonderful people have come into my life. Just because I'm leveling, I'm at this different, right? Just that different vibration. I'm a joyful person, and I would squash my joy. People might be like, you're too happy or whatever, and I'm like, I'm just happy. I'm happy to be alive. Sorry, that's who I'm going to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah.
That's amazing.
That's
I
a
love
really
that.
good. That's a really good point.
Well, it just underscores like the power that we have, the personal power we
Definitely,
have to really tell our story and
Definitely.
kind of create the narrative that we want, right? And so have you thought about what your personal narrative is? Like, you're a joyful person.
Definitely joy. That word is just always around me. I think for me, I love to connect people, and I love to see them for who they are. So sometimes that doesn't vibe with people that aren't in this space that we are, right? So not everyone's going to like me. That's okay. Like when I was younger, that would bother me. But for me, I just love it when I'm with other women and I can just listen to their story, and I pretend like they have this little sign on them that says, make me feel important, or I need to heal. Just a little, you can hear it in their language. And so I love just giving women that space to share their story. And so I'd say being authentic and connecting people in the world, that's just really important to me. So
I love that.
Definitely. And being real.
yeah,
Just
sure.
being real. You know, we can't all be happy all the time, but to know that that's at your core and that's what you can choose, I think makes a big difference. It is, I find that is challenging to not allow myself to, you know, come down. Not that other people are, you know, so negative and so bad and whatever, but you just to be at this, you know, when you're feeling really good, to be able to hold that space and to be able to hold that story
and to
for
give yourself permission.
Exactly.
You know, like Brene Brown talks about it,
Exactly.
like one of the hardest emotions for women is joy.
Yeah.
Because we're afraid the other shoe's going to drop, right? So you really have to lean into joy. You've got to just do it, right? And the other thing that helps me is, I forget what quote this is, but it's the one where the critic only matters if they're in the arena. Do you know which quote that is? Anyway,
That's from one of her books, I think.
Yeah, and it's her favorite quote. Anyway, and but it talks about if people are on the bleachers and they're at you or judging you, that's okay. That's where they are, but don't take it in. What matters is the people like you doing your blog, you and I doing our shows, really trying to make a difference. That's who matters to me.
Definitely.
Do you know what I mean? So that helps me kind of say, is this my issue or theirs, right? So.
Rachel Hollis has a great quote from her therapist that says,
That's awesome.
yeah, that says, other people's opinions are none of your business.
Yeah.
And where I would throw an F-bomb in there somewhere to really drive it home, but it's none of your business. And I think, in terms of me being able to own my story where I am right now, that's a huge part for me that I have to remind myself. It is none of my business what other people think. I do this for me. Whoever connects with it,
Yep.
and those are the people that I will continue to surround myself with. Not people that validate me,
Right. Yeah.
just
No.
people that connect with me.
That
Does
you're
that make sense?
drawn
There's a
to.
difference
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? So I think even as into my own and mature as I feel, I really have to remind myself that so I don't get stuck in that story of caring so much about what other people think and what their opinions are, because that will stall me and that will paralyze me from putting myself out there.
100%.
From being bold, from being the person that I am, not quieting myself. I am loud.
The world needs that person to show up, right?
Right.
And so I think also too, if people have a strong opinion about you, like oftentimes as you start doing well,
Yeah.
you kind of start hearing the little critics. That just kind of reveals their insecurities. So I just, instead of, I like how you say other people's opinions don't matter, but how I treat everyone, that's
Exactly.
my responsibility,
Exactly.
right? And that's
Exactly.
what I try to own.
Exactly.
And then whatever's going on with them. But also, like, gosh, the older I get, like, I think in high school, if someone was saying something bad about me, I would just shrink down.
Absolutely.
And now I've had this change of heart where, and I never attack back. That wasn't my style. I just wasn't a tit for tat kind of person. But it really shows me their vulnerability, that they're insecure. And so oftentimes if you can just sit down and get through that, then you can really have a great relationship with that person. They're like, gosh, it's almost like they needed to talk, right?
Sure.
So, yeah, so.
Yeah, I agree. I think, approaching things from the standpoint that everyone has a story, right? If someone's trying to be drama and they're coming at you with something that's a story, having that compassion, saying, whoa, so what's going on?
Right.
Why is this person acting this way? And sending them even more love
Right.
Yeah.
can sometimes disrupt the whole interaction in
thing.
a positive way
Yeah.
and allow them to say, oh, well, yeah, let me look at the story that I'm creating that's
Exactly.
forcing me to create this. So
Yeah,
I think any way you look at it, the more you get to know yourself and embrace and accept yourself.
And I love that you said that, because that really rings true for me, that I am only responsible. We are only responsible for for our thoughts, for our words, for our actions, and the way that someone chooses to take that in and respond to that is their responsibility, not mine. As long as I'm authentic, as long as my intention is positive and has good behind it, I am not responsible for the way that someone takes in what I'm giving.
Well, and it's just they're seeing it through their lens.
Exactly.
Right? So
Exactly.
here's a new pair of glasses.
Exactly.
Life's actually pretty good.
That's how I feel about people that
I'll
are
just
like,
anonymously
why is she...
send people glasses.
Yes, you should.
Happy people glasses?
Happy people glasses.
people
They'll be
glasses.
rose-colored glasses.
In the
like
shape
when
of hearts.
people-
There you go.
When people get
Have a
so
great
upset
day.
about, oh God, so-and-so is just really on Instagram and Facebook feed,
Yes.
oh my gosh, and they're driving me nuts, and I'm going, just scroll through. I'm uncertain. Like,
Walk
but
away.
Why are you stickering at them? Why are you reading about them?
so
God,
true.
they're so annoying. And I'm like, just swipe, just swipe.
Yeah.
Another
hard.
girlfriend said that in times like that, when people are just too in their head, we were talking about our kids, but she said, sometimes you just need to say hashtag nobody cares.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Honestly.
And that's kind of like snapping or
Yes,
clapping and just
yes.
breaking
Yes.
that
Yeah.
whole
Right.
spin cycle monkey mind
Yes,
or whatever.
yeah,
Like, wait a
exactly.
minute, really?
Yeah.
It really?
That's a thought that no one needs to have right now.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
That's funny. That's
Well,
great.
this has been super fun. I'm so glad that we were able to bring levity to this and really talk about stuff that I think everyone is slowly waking up to, slowly but surely. Do you want to share social media handles and ways that people can find you on Instagram or your blog or?
So, because it is social media. It's Who Peed in My Pinot. Who Peed in My Pinot. So that's Instagram. That's it's Megan Helgeson on Facebook. But My blog is whopeedandmypino.com. Yeah.
Awesome.
And you can find me at Park City TV for our segments called Park City Pulse. And then thejoyfulheart.com, that's my business. And then my Instagram is Karla21 Olson.
Karla with a K.
With a K.
With a K.
Yes.
Awesome. Great. Well, this wraps up another episode of the Ignite podcast that is sponsored by Park City TV. And you can find Wild Women Tribe online at wildwomentribe.net. We have some exciting wanders coming up. Wanders are these group events where we go outside and we enjoy the wilderness no matter what the weather is. And then we take a fitness class and sit down over brunch and dive into a topic similar to this. So come find us on Instagram or Facebook and subscribe to our podcast. We're on SoundCloud and YouTube, and there's lots of other juicy topics with amazing women like these two ladies. And we hope to see you next time. Thank you.